All right, let's start again. So, okay, so let's talk about this currency conversion. So today what we want to look at is with this, we want a simple app. The focus is on pretty much the functionality, which is to do network data transfer. We'll find a public API that will tell us the current exchange rate. And then given two currencies, we'll say what the exchange rate between them is. That's what we want. So to be able to do that, we provide a list of currencies from currency to currency. Two lists the user can choose. The app will make a request to the public API, get the exchange rates. It can cache it, it can do it every time, whatever we want. The functionality is now in our hands. And we could go two ways. One is given an amount in one currency, you display how much is that in another currency, or like use base amount of one. How much is $1 US in Indian rupees? What's the currency in Sri Lanka? Taka. Sri Lankan rupees. Okay, it's Bangladeshi word Taka. So everybody here, except for you, Harry, your currency is what? Yuan? RMB. Also written as CNY, isn't it? The three-letter code for the currency. RMB? Okay. So that's all we have here, representation-wise, right? Shahrukh, you. Nepal is Nepali rupee? Yeah. Okay. So everybody is rupees. Okay. So what you will learn at the end of this app is how to make network calls. What is the safe way, the best way to make network calls without blocking execution? Because if you do it on the main thread and your network call is slow or the website is down, then it will feel like your app has frozen or it has crashed until the call finishes, the API call. So how to do that? And then the data that is received, what to do with it, what format is in it, is it in? How to parse it, if it's JSON, what to do with it, if it is XML, all those things. And how to, this part, I don't think I want to get into using image and text. You already know how to work with it. I want to focus more on things that we have not done. So we'll keep it simpler. So what are some examples, simple examples where you could use network data transfer to provide some functionality to the users? So I have got a couple of them here. Currency exchange rates, stock codes. If you were into stocks, today is a very interesting day. How many of you follow the stock market? Huh? Only Tesla. Yeah. You follow, Harry?
Yeah, I know
Today a circuit breaker kicked in. You guys know what that is, how that works? So what happens is the stock market has an index, which is sort of a representation of the entire stock market. And the most common index is S&P 500, Standards and Poor's 500. It is a basket of 500 companies. And that index is tracked every moment in time based on what the price of those 500 stocks is. An index is computed. And to prevent very large variations, there is a circuit breaker. So let's say S&P 500 this morning it was around 3,000. I'm going to use round numbers. So what the circuit breaker does is, if this falls in one single day by 7%, the trading is halted. For 15 minutes, the stock market closes. So that's what happened today. It's very rare. It's the first time it happened since 2013 when this rule was put in place. So 7 years. Today already stopped twice. I haven't checked recently. But then what happens is after 7%, trading is halted for 15 minutes. Then it resumes. And if it falls another 6%, then another 15 minutes. So this happened right at the morning. 9:30 is when the stock market opens. 9:30. 9:34, I think. 9:34, it had dropped by 7%. So the trading stopped. It resumed at 9:49. I don't know what happened after that. Harry is saying it stopped again. Maybe it fell by that much. And then there is another circuit breaker, which is if it falls another 7%, trading stock market closes for the day. And because of all this fear and panic that is going on in the world right now, today everybody decided that today we should sell our stocks and be safe. So if you have money, today might be a good day to buy stocks. So that's another example, stock codes. What other examples you can think of using network data transfer? What's the app you use the most? Any app. You don't have to name your favorite app. Maybe it's not something you want to share with everybody. WhatsApp. Google Maps, right? So WhatsApp. So when you open WhatsApp, what is it doing? Even when you don't open it, it's doing that. It's talking to its server. It's doing network data transfer. Right? So WhatsApp, Google Maps, if you have saved and downloaded the maps, then you can avoid network data transfer. But otherwise, it keeps checking things. Traffic, all those information. So those are some examples. So anything you do, banking, email, these are all things that will do network data transfer. It's one of the most used things if you have an app. Everything is connected. Connected means network. So you have heard this term, REST, RESTful. Who can tell me what it means? Yes. So REST is representational state transfer. So what it does is when you make that call, it gets you the state of something. So for example, we can say currency exchange rate. That is a RESTful API. It retrieves the current state, meaning what is the current exchange rate. So this is a very common term. So what we will do today is an example of a RESTful API. We'll use a RESTful API. You may have to create RESTful APIs if you work on the other side of the equation, which is to provide services like that. If you're running a shop, an online, like Amazon, you sell something online. You could provide a RESTful API where your app asks your server, what is the price of this item? Or what are the details of this item? And the request comes back with, this is the price, this much inventory we have, this is an image to show, this is how long it will take to deliver. All of that will come back. That is a RESTful because it is that current state. It comes back like that. So to find a public API, there are lots of APIs which are more complicated. For example, if you want to talk to the Amazon Web Service, or not necessarily web service, but Amazon e-commerce platform, you want to create an app that is focused on something very specific, and you want your users to be able to buy those things from Amazon. But instead of sending them to the Amazon website, Amazon allows you to implement everything in your own app, things like what is the price, all those things that I just talked about. You can talk to Amazon servers and get that information and display it, and allow the user to press a button to buy it. So all of that requires you to have an Amazon account. So there are APIs which are not public in that sense. They're not, they need authentication. So you will have to pass things like, the tokens, and Amazon will, their documentation is there. on how to make such apps, how to make a request which is authenticated so Amazon knows it's coming from you. If a sale occurs, you are the person to get commission and all that. What we want is something simple. We want an API that does not require authentication today for this app. So we want some place where we just have a URL, we ping that URL and we get the information back. You don't need to log in, you don't need to provide cookies, nothing. So there is this, I did some research and this is the one that I found that is actually quite nice, user friendly to use, to deploy. Let's see what this does. Foreign exchange rates API with currency conversion. It is a free service. Yes, this is also important. There are lots of APIs. For example, if you look for stock quotes, you will find that A, they need you to have an account, and B, they will say you can only request 20 or 50 or whatever, some number for free. After that, you have to pay for each request. So if you make an app, a stock quotes app, and it becomes popular and it starts getting used by many people, you will start hitting those limits. Then you need to know how are you going to pay them for all that information, right? So they will have exactly. So basically, they'll give you enough for you to have a taste, but not to create a commercial app. Because you could make an app and say, okay, I'll charge $1 for it, and let's say your app, stock quotes app, is better than, you know, if you play around with stock quotes app, you will find that most of them you don't like. So maybe there is something that you like and they want to charge, but then they will have to pay whoever is providing the data, because they themselves pay the stock markets. The exchange where the stock is being traded, it does not give out information for free. So it's a whole chain. So in our case, this is the API and this is what it does. So if you were to make a request to this URL, let's copy it. This is what it will return. What format is this? JSON. So it returns a JSON object, right? And usage. So latest foreign exchange reference rates. You can provide a date and it will return you historical rates. So your app can be very sophisticated. If you make this app, you can provide all these options that are available here. Look up the rate on a past date, and that is useful. Sometimes you may need to look up a past base. Let's run that app, the URL I just copied. So this is what it returned, right? In a JSON object with a key called rates, which is itself another JSON object, and another one called base. So this is base of euro. So this is all relative to the euro. 1 euro is how much of every one of these currencies. And this is the date on which it was retrieved, today's date. So this gives us, so if we were to make this same request, we'll get all of these currencies. It's not all the currencies of the world. Because this is a public API, this is a free API. It's designed for purposes like we are using. The exchange rate is just limited to a certain number of currencies, and you know there are exchange rate providers which will go beyond 4 digits and all that, you know, fractions and fractions of cents. So this is it for us. What else do they allow? They allow us to change the base, right? It says base equal to USD. Let's say I want to change the base to Canadian dollars. So this is relative to the Canadian dollar. 1 Canadian dollar is obviously 1 Canadian dollar. And the rest follow. Does this look right? Indian rupee 54.4. I I don't know if Sri Lankan rupee is here. What's it? LKR? No, it's not there. Sorry. Nepali rupee, what's the code? NPR. Also not there. How much is one Canadian dollar in Chinese renminbi? 5? So my guess is that its code, 3-letter code is CNY. Does this look right? 5.1 roughly? Yeah? So I think it is CNY. So these are all the currencies. Okay. So this is what we'll use. We'll make a request. And of course, here they have other options. Oops. I closed that tab. Let's see. Oops. API. That's the problem. So they have other options. We could provide it two currencies, from and to, symbols. So if we say symbols and base, then it will tell us between that and that. So let's say we say symbols USD, base CAD. It will tell us how much is one Canadian dollar worth in US dollars. So all these different options are there. How are we going to do it? Let's go back to our presentation. So this is what we found. We've determined that the format we get is a JSON object, and we should say, we are going to use Java for this. So we'll follow the same principles, design principles as before, model view controller. We will maintain a list of currencies in the model. So basically, we display those lists to the user as a from and to those choices. And the view will allow the basic operations. You'll select the two currencies, and as soon as you change the selection, we'll update the exchange rate. And this part allow base amount to be edited. This again, this I would want you to submit this for a small credit as an assignment when this app is done. So some parts we'll leave out as take-home exercises as assignments. So this part where you allow the base amount to be edited and then display the converted amount, that part will be for you to do on your own. It's very similar to have we done something like that? We were doing the calculator, we were updating, but we had made our own keyboard. In this case, you will just use the pop-up keyboard of the operating system. So let's design this. What are the things we need?
You can choose which currency you want to do.
So a list of, let's say, starting from, right? And similarly a to. So two lists with same items, so you can change any which way. And what else do we need?
For example, like a $100
Yes.
equal to.
Yes. So this is from, these are currencies, and this is the amount. So from to. So this is going to be, we start with 1. So and then it's a part of your assignment. You make it from whichever, you allow this to be edited. And this is where we'll display the exchange rate or the converted amount. So if it's $100, you want it in rupees, we'll tell you it's whatever, 5,500 rupees. This is pretty much it, right? Simple. And what we'll do is, as before, I want you to identify your apps. So I want you to put your name somewhere, top, bottom, your choice. And maybe the title of the app. So let's say your name or the title, whatever you want to put at the top or bottom. Okay, let's start this. We'll the name of the app, the project. Yeah, let's do that. We'll start a new project, and this time we don't need any fancy features. We'll just go with empty activity. We don't want this floating action button, so we'll choose an empty activity. And since we are doing this in Java, make sure to change the language to Java. It will show up as Kotlin because we did the previous app in Kotlin. And instead of my application, you will call it, give it your name and currency converter. So once you have this set up, make sure language is Java and the name matches that. You say finish. It will create an empty activity, an app with an empty activity for you. All right. We got only two things here, a layout and a Java class. So what is the best layout component to use for the list? Stacked layout, that's one possibility. So we could have a stack. If you were doing this on the web, in the browser, what would you use? A layout component. What HTML layout component would you use for displaying a list from which you can select one item? Drop down. So that's another option. So drop down list drops down. If you were doing it on an iPhone, the iPhone has a nice widget called Picker View. Seen that? So Picker View has one very neat feature which is very useful for this. Picker View allows you to split it into two parts and they move separately. So the single Picker View, you can say, is divided into 2, 3, 4, any number. That's how, if you have an iPhone and you want to pick a date, for example, it has one Picker View divided into 3 parts: year, month, date. It's just one widget. So the same thing you can use for this and divide it into 2 parts. The list is the same, but it allows you to rotate the 2 of them independently. It's like a wheel, isn't it? So here we don't have that, but what we do have, somewhere we should see something called a spinner. So this is like a drop-down list. It's not really a spinner, but it's a drop-down list, equivalent to drop-down list in HTML. So do you guys remember what these two the white and this blue background thing there. And how to hide one of them. So these two, this is called the blueprint view and this is called the design view. And if you click on this, the eye, no, I'm sorry, not this one, this one, the layers, which ones to show. So it is either the design or blueprint or both. So if you want to work with more space and you're, like that, you can just choose design. And you can choose what screen size you're working with, and it changes accordingly. In our case, doesn't really matter. We'll just choose Nexus 7 and work with that. So what we want is, it by default, when you create an activity, a blank activity, this is what Android Studio gives you. It gives you a text view placed right in the center, which says hello world. So what we'll do is we'll drop a couple of spinners. We want them to be next to each other. So in order to do that and keep them properly aligned, what we'll do is we'll choose a linear layout, horizontal linear layout. We'll drop it onto the view, the linear layout. And what I want to do in terms of constraints, how do we make it so that the linear layout stays in a good place? See, our hello world, this text view is right in the center. Let's remove this constraint, the bottom one. Just delete that. It should go and stick to the top. This one here is our linear layout. Now what we can do is we can attach this to the top of the linear layout. So now we've got the hello world in the top section, and this is here attached to that. What we'll do is we'll drop a couple of spinners into this. So the spinner comes, it is full width. We'll change its width. See, the layout width of the spinner, it says match parent. We can fix it. Let's say right now I'll work with numbers. So let's make it 150 dp. Okay. There is a reason why it is ignoring that, because the linear layout needs to be completely occupied. Let's put another spinner which will go next to it. Right. So now you see this became 150 and this became, it took up the rest of the width. So we'll make this also, instead of match parent, 150. Right. And even then, they're both half and half. Yes, so the way that works is, that's a good question. So linear layout, if we select the linear layout and look at its properties, actually no, we have to go to the child elements. So we go to spinner and look at its properties. You will find there is something called layout weight. So if I change this weight to 2, it will, what it does is it adds all the weights and then decides. So the weight of this is 1, this is 2, so this should take up 2/3 of the space. So this is how you will do percentage wise, or you manipulate it like that by changing the layout weight. Right? So we'll just change it back to 1, and what I will instead do is I want some space at the both the sides. So we will use padding. We'll say padding to the left and padding to the right. So now we've got empty space on both sides. And if we want, let's make it even more explicit, we'll add a text view between the two of them. And this text, we'll say the text is 2. So it's going from this currency to that currency. And text gravity. We want gravity. We want the text to be centered. Okay. This is what it looks like right now. Why does it say okay? I said 2. Did I say okay? Text. Oh, okay. The reason it did that is because if I type TO and press enter, and whatever suggestion it has given, it is choosing that. So I just have to say escape and then press enter. So now it says 2. Okay, so we've got this, this and this. Now how do we assign values to a spinner? How do we say? So right now if you run your app, you'll probably get, let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to run it here. It should do is it should give me blank drop down list. There's nothing, right? So what we want is we want to figure out how to add data to this. Android spinner. Spinners, Android developers. This looks like a good place to go. So this is what we are using. Spinners provide a quick way to select one value from a set. This is an example. If you use Android and you are entering somebody's phone number or email or something in the contacts, it will give you these options. So, okay, here they're saying that you can add using XML. So what we have done is we have added using the design view. If you go to your XML, you will see that there is an element called spinner. Okay. So it's got the spinner here. So what they are suggesting you add with XML, we have done it by dragging and dropping. Now this is the next part, populate the spinner with user choices. So you remember how for when we created the list of games in the tic-tac-toe, we had to use an adapter that provided what is displayed in the list. So this concept is there in many such widgets in Android. You have an adapter. So you have an adapter for a list like that. You have an adapter for a list like this. And this is what they are suggesting. If the available choices for your spinner are predetermined, you can provide them with a string array defined in a string resource file. So we could basically take this type of construction, XML, define a string array, give it a name, and give it all the values. So in our case, this works. We are going to be using a predetermined set of currencies. We know what let's say we want to pick a set of, for our purposes, 8 currencies, 9 currencies, whatever, 5 currencies, whatever we want, and we'll work with that. You also have the option of, before even displaying that, this API, it gives us all these currencies. So another option is to populate that list using all the currencies that are available in this list. So you've got them all covered. So that's another option. We won't make it like that to begin with. We'll just give it a fixed set of currency names. So in the spinners, it suggests to add this string array with these many items, right? So what we'll do is we'll go to our project. Within the resources, you will see that in the values, there is something called strings. We'll just put it in this. We won't create a new file. So we'll say string array name currency codes. Okay, and then the items. I think, yeah, that's it. We need to basically put items within the item tag. So items, what are the items we want? We want CAD, USD. Let's go with the what is available, what we have representation in the class and which is available to us. And let's put another couple of them. Euro. What else? It's a good currency to put here. China is here. Huh? Let's look at the list. Yeah. So what is available? There are probably around 20 or so here. So there is Japanese yen. So there is Thai baht, Swiss franc. We can choose, let's go with British pound. It seems to be a popular currency. Okay, so let's work with these 6. So this is our string array. This is what we will display in that list on both sides. What else? What else do they want us to do? So to initialize it, we are going to be using Java, so we'll switch to that. So these are the steps. We have already added our spinners to the view. So we do a find view by ID and get the spinner. And then we create an adapter. And there are different adapters. What we used for the list fragment was a recycle view list adapter. Here we'll use an array adapter. So what it does is it takes an array and converts it. It creates all the functionality that this spinner is going to need when you set that as an adapter. Like, what is the selected element, what happens when you change the selection, what gets called, all of that. So this is the code we need. So we need to retrieve the spinner. We need to create an array adapter based on the string array we just created. So this is r.array.planets array. So this is their planets array. And what it also wants is the adapter also determines how it is going to be laid out. So there is a simple spinner item. So in this list, right, the drop down, when that list shows up, this simple spinner item just displays text. You can customize it. You can create a layout file. You can call it custom spinner layout.xml. And then you can say that instead of just the text, I want an image. Let's say you want to show the flag of the country. So in that layout, you can specify all that. So then what you have to do is this adapter will need more methods. It will need something called inflators. You take that XML layout and you inflate it. How do you inflate it? You say, okay, where it says image view, show when the currency is GBP, show the British flag. When it is USD, show the American flag. Chinese currency, Chinese flag. So that is how you can customize it. We are not going there. We'll just use a simple spinner item. So that's this is the code we need. We need to retrieve the spinner and we need to create this array adapter. You want to make your life easier, just Google this and copy the code. Google Android spinner. Go to the first result which says spinners Android developers. And then where it says switch to Java and copy these. Actually, there is 4 lines of code, but with the comments it's a little bit longer. We'll just copy all of it and paste it here in our currency conversion in the main activity. This goes in the main activity. It goes in on create. This is where we are populating the, not populating, we're telling it what to do with the spinner. So it will immediately complain about all the missing things that we have not imported. So do Alt Enter. Cannot resolve symbol, Alt Enter. Array adapter, same thing. Okay. Yes. So let's change the array name to currency codes. Okay. So now if you run it, you should see some change. Run it and tell me what you see. In the design view, in the XML? Yeah, that's correct. We did not position it vertically. So, yeah, this one, right, is not constrained. It has only design time position, so it will jump to 0, 0 at runtime. Very good point. So, how did we do this kind of positioning previously? Yes, so we could do that, then it will be. So this here, I could, we could reduce its width. But first of all, this is too tall, right? Why is it so tall? Because it's got width and height. So its width, we want it to be just as tall as what is inside it. Sorry, not width, it's height. We want it to be just as tall as the components. So how do you do that? What is the value you give here? Wrap content. Right, so that it did. And width, we want it to be taking up the entire, right? So for that, we can just attach it, just drag from the white circle, attach it to the edge. So these two will become solid. This is attached to the bottom and this will attach it. Actually, you know what I prefer is, right now this has like this. What I find works better is if you just chain them. So select the two of them and create a vertical chain. This achieves what we want. It places them in relation to each other such that they occupy the whole screen, and when the screen size changes, it's like a spring-loaded mechanism. So, did you guys see what we did? We selected, let me just do it again in case you need that. So, this hello world is at the top. Okay, while we are at it, let's change its text. Declared attributes instead of hello world. Let's call it currency exchange rates or converter. Currency converter. Okay, so we've got a text view called which has the text currency converter and the linear layout. So select both of them. On a Mac, you would use the command key and click. On a Windows machine, you will just control and click. You got the two of them. Right click and say chain. Go to chains and create vertical chain. You're done. When we add something, we can create a chain of 3. Why don't we do that? Okay, we'll come to it. So this is it. Now in our activity, we've got currency code. So what happens now when you run the app? You get the list of names, currency names, both sides, only the left, right? Because we did it for one spinner. We didn't do it for both. So what we need to do is we need to do it for the second spinner. What is its name? So its ID is spinner 2. This is spinner and this is spinner 2. Let's change this. I don't like this. Spinner doesn't tell us much. So we'll call it from currency spinner. Or just from spinner actually. Let me keep it a bit shorter. From spinner and to spinner. And when you change it, it will ask you whether you want to refactor. Do it everywhere. You just say yes. And same thing, spinner 2 will change it to spinner. So we've got from spinner text view just that has the word 2 and to spinner. In our main activity, you will find that this got changed to from spinner. Now we need to do the same thing for the to spinner. We basically need this entire line, but we want to do it for the to spinner. So it's going to complain variable name is already in use. Change that to, and in fact, let's refactor this to from spinner, the variable name itself. Okay, so we've got from spinner to spinner, and this we want this to be to spinner. So this will retrieve that variable, and now you tell me whether we need to create another adapter or can we reuse that adapter. We can reuse because it's got the exact same data. It will work. So what we can do is to spinner dot set adapter. Okay. So now when you run your app, you should see the currency names on both sides. Okay. Is that happening? You're seeing it on both sides? Good. So give me an example.
Right now, it shows all the values array from left to right. So if it's converting from Europe, so it shouldn't be like from Europe to Europe, right? So that doesn't make sense. So if the value in the two is selected, in the other one you could either hide it or disable it.
So the way you can deal with it, it's a good question, is there are two ways to deal with it. One is to disable selection of the same currency on both sides, right? And the other is to just display the conversion as 1. So you will find that if you go to Google and look for exchange rates, that's what it does. The problem with disabling is, let's say you've got CAD selected on the left, right? And you select USD on the right. Now you want to go from USD to CAD. How would you go? Because it won't let you select USD on the left. Because you have disabled it, you cannot select the same currencies, and it won't let you select CAD on the right because left is already CAD. So disabling it has that quirk. Then what you have to do is you have to choose a third currency first and then cycle through them. So in terms of functionality, it's better to just show the currency conversion as one, so that the user can use it without having to go through this sort of workarounds of how to.
Google does it automatically. It doesn't actually doesn't show you when it flips automatically.
Okay.
If I selected to Canadian, like from Canadian to USD, and if I change USD to CAD, so it will flip and
Will show it will. Okay, it just switches back.
yeah.
Okay, that's the other way you could deal with it. So there are 3 ways of doing it then. Okay, so we are up to that point. Let's see what is our next step. So we'll create a model now, right? And within the model, what we want is, we're doing model view controller. We've got the view and the controller. See, what we don't have is what happens if you change the selection right now, nothing happens, right? So that's another part. We'll come back to it. What we'll do now is how much time we have? We have about 10 minutes of the class. So I think what we should do is we should finish the view and the interaction today and then work on the model next time, because model we will start and we'll not be able to get anywhere really, not do much. So what we want now is we want to be able to detect when something has changed in those lists. So for that, what you would do is you would implement in your main activity, you want to convert it to a listener, right? So that it knows when a change occurs. It comes here. So we will say implements adapter. Actually, we are using array adapter, but I believe the event comes from adapter view. Let's just see if the documentation tells us. Responding to user selections. How do we do that? Right. On the same page where we copied the code from, if you scroll down, responding to user selection. So you implement this on item selected listener, this interface, and then because you're implementing that interface for your class to not be abstract, you need to add these methods. So this is something Android Studio will offer to do for us as soon as we say implements on item selected listener. Let's see how that works. So implements on item selected listener, this one. Okay. So you select it, it gives the full path for the class. It's an inner class of adapter view. So it's complaining class main activity must either be declared abstract or implement abstract method so and so. So you press Alt Enter and you get an option implement methods. Choose that, and then it is saying okay, what to implement. You can select both of these, just say okay, and it will add them to the bottom of your main activity. So these are the methods that will get called when a selection occurs, meaning something changes. So how do we know what it does? What we could do is, for now, we could make a snack bar. and display it. Or we can, for now, let's just put a log output. Alt enter to import log. Item changed. Okay, so this will tell us whether it's coming here or not. So now when you run your app, well, actually not yet. We have created the listener, converted this into a listener by implementing this on item selected listener, but we haven't yet told the spinner that this is your listener. So right now there is no change. You can run it, it won't go there. So what we need to do now is we need to tell this from spin exactly set. See, these methods you can very often guess the name. If it's an on item selected listener, click listener. On item selected listener. And what do we give here as the argument? So it should be Alt enter or just take your mouse, you click, take your mouse cursor here. Option, yes. Mac doesn't have Alt, it's called option. So now we are setting this on item selected listener. What do you pass as the argument here? So we're telling the spinner that this is the object that is going to listen. Who is going to listen to that? So which class we have implemented this on item selected listener? Same class, right? So it is an object of the same class. Actually, it's the current object. How do you refer to it? This. That's all you need. That should do it. The same thing to the to spinner. On item selected listener. Right. So this now will go here. There are two ways you can check. You can just watch the log output. That's what we'll do. We'll run this and we'll filter it by item changed, the tag. So when you run it like that and you change your selection, you should see a message here that says new currency code. So I'm changing here. Installation. Okay. So now it is going there. I don't know if I have a problem with my filter. Logcat, maybe I have. Yeah, it is saying item changed. It is going there. So this is basically our functionality is set up now. We are able to select. We know where it goes. Right now we are just printing a log output. Now what we need to do is we need to instantiate. We need to create a model class which will talk to the API on the internet retrieve all the data. And from that, where we are now printing the log, we'll say, okay, from the model, get me the exchange rate of these two things that are selected. And that's it. Then we're done. And then we display it. So that's going to be our next part. So we'll do that next time. It should not take us very long. Maybe before the break, we'll be able to do that. So here is a question for you guys. Last time I discussed some options for what else we are going to work on. So you guys wanted network calls, so that's what we are doing. We'll finish that middle of next class. What would you like the next step to be? And I'll give you some options. One is we could look at the map kit, how to use maps. Or another possibility is to use a machine learning model to just deploy it within an app. Artificial intelligence. So that is something that I will need to also investigate, but I'm sure it is doable. So which one of those two do you prefer for the next class? We can always do both of them and then we'll do it in the lab. So there are various possibilities. We'll see. See, machine learning has many parts. How many of you are familiar with how machine learning works? Okay. So machine learning is you are training an algorithm. So what it does is you give it a lot of data. So I'll give you an example. It's a very famous example of predicting wages, how much somebody makes in a year, based on certain data that the census department has collected. So let's say they've got the data for 50,000 people. Things like where does this person live, what is their age, what is their education, whether they are married, single or not, and what is their racial background. All of these things they collect and they put it in a database along with how much money this person makes, right? For every person. Now you've got 50,000, 100,000, millions of data points basically. Now you want a machine learning algorithm to learn, given a random set, another set, without the wage, to predict what is this person's wage is going to be and how accurate is it. So what it does is, let's say you've got 50,000 data points. What you will do is you will use, let's say, 48,000 of them to train the model, and the other 2,000 actual data points you will use it to test. You will make the model do predictions and then determine how accurate it is. So out of those 2,000, you will determine, okay, it was 95% accurate. And how much was the deviation when it was not accurate? Those kind of things. A lot of statistics. So there is that part. One part is how to create that model, which, how to use those 48,000 data points to create a model that will do the prediction. And the other part is how to use the prediction model to tell you about a new data point. So that's the second part we can do. The first part is very involved. It's beyond the scope of our class. It's probably, you could do an entire program, a graduate certificate in machine learning modeling. So, but the second part, where a model is available to us, how to use it, that part we can do. Sounds interesting. Let's look into it. Okay, so that's our first choice, and then we'll do the maps. So machine learning is a very hot topic right now. You will, if you look for jobs, etc., you will find that there are lots of opportunities. People are scared of machine learning. People who don't know that, like accountants are scared that they will lose their jobs. Doctors are scared that the machines will do their job. And that machines, so with so much of it going on, it's important that, we also sort of know what it is. Right? So we'll do that next time. We'll start there. We'll finish this and we'll try and use something fun. I don't know if I'll be able to find a model it would be very interesting to use your phone's camera to point it to, let's say, a dog and say what breed that dog is. Is it a German Shepherd? Is it a smaller dog? Google has APIs, right? So we can use those. I'm going to look for it for Android, how to deploy it. and how to build an app around it so that you can even impress your friends. Here, see, I'll tell you what breed your dog is. Okay. All right. So it's 2:53. We'll stop here. All right.